Let me tell you a story about a gardener. Not just any gardener, a man whose hands were calloused from years of tending to the earth, whose eyes held the quiet certainty of someone who understood the language of roots and rain. His name was Hiroshi, and he lived in a village nestled between misty mountains, where the soil was rich but stubborn. For a decade, Hiroshi did something that baffled everyone around him. He planted a single bamboo seed. And for 10 long years, nothing happened. You might be thinking, 10 years? Why would anyone waste their time on a seed that won't sprout? That's exactly what the villagers asked too. They'd walk past Hiroshi's garden, shaking their heads as they watched him water the barren patch of dirt. "Old man," they'd say, "you're chasing a ghost. That bamboo is dead." But Hiroshi would just smile, his wrinkles deepening like the grooves of a riverbed, and reply, "The bamboo is not dead. It is listening." Now, let me pause here. Because this story isn't just about a plant. It's about you. How many times have you planted a seed in your own life, a dream, a goal, a relationship, only to feel like nothing's happening? You water it with effort, shield it from doubt, but all you see is empty soil. No green shoots. No progress. Just silence. And maybe, like the villagers, you start to wonder, am I wasting my time? Hiroshi knew that feeling. But he also knew something most of us forget: growth is not always visible. Bamboo, you see, is unlike any other plant. For the first few years, it doesn't break the surface. Instead, it spends its energy building an intricate network of roots underground, strong enough to one day support a stalk that can soar 90 feet into the sky. But if you give up too soon, if you dig up the seed to check on it, you destroy everything. So Hiroshi kept tending to that invisible promise. Seasons came and went. Children in the village grew into adults. Still, Hiroshi watered the soil, whispered to the earth, and trusted in a process he couldn't see. And then, one spring morning, something miraculous happened. But let me take you back before the bamboo sprouted to understand why Hiroshi never lost faith. Years earlier, when he was a young man, Hiroshi had planted a different seed, a cherry blossom sapling. Impatient and eager, he'd watered it relentlessly, even dug it up weekly to inspect its roots. "Grow faster," he'd demand. And for a while, it did. The tree shot upward, bursting with pink flowers that drew admirers from across the valley. But then, during a storm, the shallow roots gave way. The tree toppled, its trunk snapping like a twig. That failure haunted Hiroshi. He realized his impatience had robbed the tree of the strength it needed to survive. So when he planted the bamboo seed years later, he vowed to do things differently. He'd learned that true growth demands patience, not just waiting, but active, intentional trust in the process. Meanwhile, the villagers' skepticism grew. A merchant once taunted him, "Hiroshi, even my donkey knows when to stop kicking a rock. Why don't you?" But Hiroshi just chuckled. "Your donkey is wise," he said, "but rocks and bamboo are not the same. Here's the thing, the world is full of people who'll call your patience foolish. They'll say, move on, give up, or be realistic." But Hiroshi's story asks us, what if realistic is just another word for afraid to hope? One winter, a terrible drought struck the village. Crops withered, rivers dried, and the villagers grew desperate. Many packed their belongings to leave. But Hiroshi stayed. He knelt by his bamboo patch, pouring his last jug of water into the soil. A boy, thin and parched, approached him. "Why waste water on dirt?" he asked. Hiroshi handed the boy a drink from his own canteen and said, "This isn't just dirt. It's a promise." That moment captures the heart of patience. It's an act of faith, not just endurance. Hiroshi wasn't passively waiting, he was investing in a future only he could see. Then, in year 10, the storm came. Not just any storm, a monsoon. Rain lashed the village for days, tearing roofs from homes and flooding fields. When the clouds finally parted, the villagers emerged to assess the damage. And there, in Hiroshi's garden, stood something no one expected, a slender green shoot, no taller than a finger, peeking through the mud. The villagers gathered, murmuring in awe. "A miracle," they cried. But Hiroshi shook his head. "No," he said. "This is not a miracle. It is science." He explained how the bamboo had spent a decade building roots that stretched deep into the earth, anchoring itself, gathering nutrients. "The storm didn't create the bamboo," he said. "It merely revealed what was already there." Within weeks, the bamboo stalk exploded upward, climbing higher each day until it dwarfed the village rooftops. Children swung from its branches, and travelers came miles to marvel at it. But Hiroshi's pride wasn't in the bamboo's height, it was in the roots. "Now," he told the villagers, "it can withstand any storm. Let's tie this back to you. Maybe you're in your own 10-year drought. You're working on a project that's taking longer than expected, healing from a loss, or rebuilding a dream that others think is dead. It's easy to feel like Hiroshi in those early years, questioning, lonely, wondering if your effort matters. But here's the truth, your roots are growing. Every small act of courage, every day you choose not to quit, you're building something invisible but unshakable. And what about the storms? Hardship isn't a sign you're on the wrong path. Often, it's the very thing that forces your growth to the surface. So, what happened to Hiroshi? The bamboo became a symbol in the village. Parents brought their children to touch its trunk and hear the story of the gardener who refused to give up. But the real lesson wasn't just about waiting, it was about how to wait. Hiroshi's patience wasn't passive, it was purposeful. He didn't just stare at the soil, he studied it. He learned when to water, when to let the rain do its work, and when to shield the earth from harsh sun. In the same way, practicing patience in your life means staying engaged, even when results are invisible. It's showing up for your goals with the same dedication, whether you're on day 10 or year 10. Let's get practical. How do you cultivate Hiroshi's kind of patience? First, focus on the roots, not the shoot. Ask yourself, what skills, relationships, or values am I nurturing beneath the surface? Second, reframe waiting as preparation. Every day you spend not there yet is a day to grow stronger. Third, surround yourself with reminders of growth. Hiroshi kept a journal, noting tiny changes in the soil that others missed. What small signs of progress can you celebrate today? Finally, remember, the bamboo didn't grow in spite of the 10-year wait, it grew because of it. Without those roots, it would have collapsed under its own height. The same applies to your dreams. The delays, the setbacks, the silent seasons, they're not obstacles. They're the foundation. So, the next time you feel impatient, think of Hiroshi. Think of the invisible roots. And ask yourself, what if today's stillness is the very thing preparing me to rise? Closing narration, soft, hopeful tone. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs a reminder to trust their journey. And remember, your bamboo is growing, even when you can't see it. Stay patient, stay rooted, and I'll see you in the next story.